A lot going on in the NFL. It's cut down day, getting down to 53 on the roster. The Cowboys have made their picks. Jerry and Steven and RJ Ochoa is here to help us break it down from bloggingtheboys.com. RJ, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, guys. Great to be with you.
Man, it's good to have you again. So, just overall impressions on the moves that maybe did or didn't happen today from Jerry and Steven.
Ultimately, I think it was pretty chalk. It just kind of went exactly the way, we expected it to. I think to the untrained eye, it maybe looks a little weird. They don't have a backup quarterback at the moment. They don't have a kicker or a long snapper. All those things are temporary and part of the Cowboys using what tools they can to manipulate the roster, to sneak certain players onto injured reserve. You do have to be on the initial 53-man roster today to be eligible to be brought back from injured reserve at some point during the season. So that's why the Cowboys have to carry players like James Washington or Tyron Smith, who they're hopeful obviously will return to the active roster at some point later down the road.
What are they doing at left tackle? I mean, you mentioned Tyron Smith goes down. There were rumors they were, trying to get a guy from the Jets. They can't roll a rookie out there in that league. You don't want a rookie at left tackle.
I agree. I mean, I think it would be highly irresponsible to play any rookie at left tackle. I think it is, borderline a level of malpractice type of irresponsible to roll a rookie out there who's worked exclusively at left guard, when it comes to training camp and the preseason. And so the Cowboys were very, very specific to mention that they were going to, take things slow with Tyler Smith when they first drafted him. And they've completely and totally pulled a 180 on that. And, where people kind of debate this subject is, well, hey, he's the left tackle of the future. Let him learn now, baptism by fire sort of thing. And that, there's some logic to that. But what if he's bad? What if he's awful? What if you destroy his kind of psyche or whatever? I mean, there is a lot that could go wrong. And that's just as far as his own individual development. What if he's bad at this? What if he's poor at this? I mean, that damages the rest of your team. That damages your franchise quarterback where you're paying a lot of money to. And so this is really, at this point, this is about the Cowboys trying to prove that they're right and that they that this was the plan all along when it clearly wasn't. If this had truly been the plan, it would have been a poor plan, to be clear. But there would have been some moments throughout camp where Tyler Smith was working at left tackle, right? Like, at least you could look back and say, hey, you know what, they were kind of prepped for this, but they seem to be the only people in the world who did not know that Tyron Smith had missed time in each of the last 6 years. And yes, his injury came on earlier than a lot of people expected it. And, it's unfortunate to kind of forecast an injury like that. But that was why people screamed all offseason long, go get help, go get tackle help. They only regressed in that department by cutting Lyle Collins. And so this truly is a bed that they made and that everybody has to lie in.
So, RJ, the other thing about all of that is when I would hear, and, you can't turn around and not hear Jerry Jones. He's either on their TV network pregame or he's on the radio down there in Dallas. And they're talking about, well, we need other offensive people to step up. Well, okay, how's a wide receiver going to step up if the quarterback doesn't have time to get him the ball because the left tackle can't do – none of that made – that response did not make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like if you were, your house had experienced flood damage and, some of the foundation was weak and you said, well, we really need the roof to just look pretty, to people that are walking and seeing us across the street. And so, yeah, I mean, it all, there's a domino effect. This is, this isn't a different sport where other players can kind of carry you offensively. You need everybody to work together in harmony and in synchronization. And so, I mean, but any admission of any other sort, again, is an admission of failure by them, right? Like, if they were to go out and sign, pick a name, Eric Fisher, Marcus Cannon, trade for Andrew Whitworth's rights, whatever.
Andrew Whitworth.
Right. Well, yeah. But and I'm with you, but that is, as far as the perception of the front office, an admission that they didn't properly prepare, an admission that they had to go out and save themselves, smash the glass in case of emergency. And that's not what they want to do. They want the presentation that they were right. And now they've kind of, talked themselves into this fairy tale of, well, remember when Tony Romo went down? We weren't prepared there, but Dak Prescott came in and was amazing. Maybe that's going to happen here. Yeah, it should. I mean, this is a team that has tripped into incredible successes in those kinds of ways. Even Micah Parsons a year ago. I love Micah. I'm in no way upset that he's on this team. That pick should not have worked out the way that it did. I mean, they effectively spent a top 10 pick on an off-ball linebacker. That's a horrible misusage of a resource, that is that coveted. But he just so happened to wind up as this amazing pass rusher. And so just because you accidentally got there does not mean the path you took was wide.
Even by Dallas Cowboys standards, this offseason and camp has been chaotic.
I would be hard-pressed to disagree with that. And you say things like that, and I think people think that 100% of it has been that way. Like, there have been some positive moments and some positive things, but for the most part, it has been. I mean, for the most part, they've been largely inactive as far as, people say, like, well, they did invest serious resources. They spent their first-round pick. Everybody gets a first-round pick, right? Like, they don't get credit because they did something that they have to do. And so, I mean, that's just the football of it all. It was obviously an incredibly toxic offseason off the field. Multiple stories that the Cowboys were connected to of incredibly offensive and flagrant varieties. And so I think part of it is, people talk so much about like how much information we have access to, what with, the power of technology and the internet. I think that's part of it. But I also think the average fan is much more plugged in, is much more attuned, listens to shows like yours. And so they know what's going on. And so I think, 30 years ago, you can maybe get away with, sprinkling in the fun little limericks and whatnot when you're on the radio. But now everybody knows how much cap space you have. Everybody remembers you cutting Lyle Collins and trading away Amari Cooper. Nobody is falling for this, kind of facade anymore. The act has worn itself out. This is Fast and the Furious when they go to the moon or whatever. Like, it was cool when it was the very first one, but it's just cheesy and lame now.
RJ Ochoa, bloggingtheboys.com, with us here on Ruscin and Zach. What's the read down there in Texas with McCarthy?
I honestly think that the general consensus is sympathy. And I don't know that anyone is at a place where they feel so badly for McCarthy that they want him to stick around. I think the Venn diagram of people, there's a middle portion of Cowboys fans within the Venn diagram that are upset with him as the team's head coach, but that are at the same time willing to acknowledge that he's not exactly being set up for success. He is, for lack of a better way to put it, kind of being set up to be the fall guy. And, the idea that has to happen as some sort of prerequisite to Sean Payton or whatever doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if you want to move on from McCarthy, just do it. I mean, why, you don't have to be terrible for a year to justify that. But I think a lot of people are truly understanding and accepting that the Joneses, who are obviously the front office, have set him up incredibly poorly. I mean, there's a number of things. Obviously, the players they've gotten rid of, the lack of players they brought in. Jerry Jones publicly dangled McCarthy's job status in the name of keeping one of his subordinates. I mean, and I love Dan Quinn, but, who does that, like, to a person? It's very strange. And so I think that they've just set McCarthy up to really be this putz. That's just kind of the way everybody looks at the Cowboys head coaching position. It has nothing to do with McCarthy, but people said Jason Garrett was a puppet forever. And that's just kind of the situation it is. And I think where it's a little bit different is McCarthy isn't Jason Garrett. He doesn't take that. He does clap back. He does kind of talk. And there was a point 2 years ago where Jerry was on the radio, telling people that Terrence Steele was going to be starting at right tackle that week. And like 10 minutes later in real time, McCarthy was at the podium for his Friday press conference and said, "We haven't decided any of them." And that's where he's different. And I think people do respect that he's willing to kind of stand up against that. But he's one man up against the power that is the entire organization. And nobody can overcome that ultimately.
And as if this weren't bad enough, I mean, all of the things that are swirling around this franchise and all of the missteps and all the things you just talked about, Taylor Swift is releasing an album in the month of October, and you put out a tweet yesterday, and I'm just going to let you explain it, but Taylor Swift releasing an album does not bode well for the Dallas Cowboys, proving that she is just simply a pox upon this earth.
Yeah, generally speaking, the Cowboys haven't fared well in seasons that Taylor has released an original album, to be clear, because she, I know you guys are super into Taylor Swift. She's been re-releasing some albums as of late. And, if I'm honest, I kind of identify Taylor Swift's music partly with college football, just because they usually come out in October. They're usually used on, like, the nighttime ABC, like, highlight, kind of package trailer. So I do kind of associate her with this time of year. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan myself. She was the first concert I ever saw at Minute Maid Park, the home of my Astros. And so, unfortunately, the Cowboys have not done well when she's released album. But Mike McCarthy did win a Super Bowl himself at the Cowboys Stadium after Taylor released her third album. So at least he individually can overcome this.
Now, you're an A&M guy, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Kellen Mond got released today.
Yeah, I mean,
could they?
I'm more of a Ryan Tannehill played quarterback when I was there. Just to kind of put in perspective how old I am. Even Gerard Johnson was there my freshman year, and so obviously, look, I have a huge amount of loyalty to Kellen Mond. I will never forget the 7 overtime win against LSU a few years ago. At this point, I do feel for him. I feel for all of the Vikings. Actually, I'm really high on the Vikings as a whole. And a big reason for that is that Mike Zimmer is no longer around. And he was, I mean, really, kind of a jerk, not just to Kellen, but to Kirk Cousins. I mean, he was just this kind of really, grumpy person. So I can understand Kevin O'Connell and the current Vikings regime saying, this isn't our guy. Let's just move on. We didn't draft him, whatever. I really am interested. I would love to see him obviously land somewhere where he has a higher opportunity to succeed. But if I'm also being totally honest, I never thought that he was going to be great at the NFL level. But he did offer some very great memories for me and my buddies.
Can you settle a debate that has been raging not just here but around the country? I talk about your favorite guy, Tom Brady. I saw a 3-panel look at him yesterday. We now believe that he had plastic surgery on his 11 days off.
You know what? If he did, I'll consider it myself. I trust everything that Tom Brady does from a health and dietary standpoint. I think it's always strange when you look at like players that have played as long as he has. They'll do the morphing image from when they were like rookies and all their profile photos that they've taken over time. I mean, there's definitely been some stuff there. Like, I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know what the particular practice was. Maybe there's some sort of like acupuncture or something. But Tom has definitely devoted some time, I think, to his physical.
The 3 panels I was looking at yesterday were 12 months apart. It was last November to now, and he's had something done around the chin.
He's been around the sun a lot, and I think that we also have to consider he wears different colors. Pewter is a color that dramatically changes the way you're like perceived in life, as opposed to like the navy he was rocking for so long in New England.
Fair.
Okay.
We just got a question from one of our listeners. Is Kellen Mond possibly somebody who could land in Dallas?
I don't think so. I mean, the Cowboys technically don't have a backup quarterback on their roster right now, but that is, again, part of the roster manipulation that they're currently undergoing. Cooper Rush will in all likelihood be back on their team. I would expect that they'll add Will Greer to their practice squad, assuming he clears waivers. So I don't see it happening. I'd love to see him end up on the Texans. I have a lot of friends, obviously, from Houston. I mentioned I'm an Astros fan. That's just kind of the way it goes at A&M. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see Kellen get some opportunity, but I don't think it'll be with the Cowboys.
All right, RJ Ochoa, our guest, bloggingtheboys.com, with everything you need to know about the Cowboys and their 53-man roster that got finalized, well, sort of, today.
I'm not going to say this just because RJ's on the phone. He is a great follow on Twitter because the emotional roller coaster with RJ on Twitter is one of those things. I mean, when the Astros are losing, you would think the world's ending. When the Astros are winning, it's top of the mountain.
Yes.
I'm a big believer in all or nothing. I either want to experience the ride at its ultimate highs or I want to go down in total flames. The middle is lame for me. Nobody wants to be Jay and Brady. So that's why I live my life at both ends of the spectrum.
RJ, you've done it again, sir. Thank you so much. Good stuff.
Thanks, guys.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. Bet online, where the game starts.